Hey guys, it's Stephanie Rose, and today I'm giving you book recommendations, and the topic is gender in speculative fiction. And while I'm sure that there are fantasy books out there that have dealt with this topic, I have not read them, or I do not remember having read them. So these are all sci-fi books, which will explain my sweater. Give me some space! Yeah. I love this. Anyway, the books I have for you guys today, they are the only books that I've read like this, which is why there's so few, but I think they're really good. I have Provenance by Anne Leckie, The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers, and A Close and Common Orbit, also by Becky Chambers. I loved this series, and I'm really excited because apparently there's a third book out that I didn't know about that my library has, so it is on hold because it was already borrowed out. So I have to wait for that one. So disappointed. Anyway, the first one of these that I read was A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, and I got it on audiobook. I listened to it, and honestly, the first thing that really struck me was just how good of a book it was, because it's basically like a trek through space type story. It's kind of like Star Wars, I guess, in a way, except without the wars. And I like that type of stuff. So I picked the second audiobook up as soon as I found it. I'm also really excited. I'm going to be reading these in book format since I've got them. Provenance was the same way. I also got that on audiobook. So anyway, enough with the generals. I'm going to go into the books themselves. Something that struck me whenever I was reading these books for each of them was the use of a solid neutral pronoun, and also a bit of etiquette involving that. Becky Chambers' books, they have very possibly a realistic take on how gender could be treated in the future, and these are set in the near distant future, probably like 100 or so years, and Provenance is way far ahead, like probably thousands and thousands of years. So that could also explain just the huge difference in the culture, that and the fact that they're written by different people. But still, so there are instances where a neutral pronoun is used until a gender specifier is given. I actually have a quote for this from The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, and the neutral pronoun used in those books by Becky Chambers is Z, is spelled X-E. Sissek said Z's nocturnal, she said, choosing a neutral pronoun. It was the only polite thing to do when no gender signifiers had been given. It could also have been used in reference to non-binary characters. I'm not positive. It's been a while since I've read these, but I would not be surprised if there is a non-binary in one of the two books that I've read by her. So yes, there's a mildly PC culture throughout the book, but it's not preachy, which I appreciate. Yeah, so there's that one. It felt very realistic, like it could be feasible, which was really interesting to me. As for Provenance, because it is set very far in the future, like extremely far in the future, cultures have shifted. It does deal with a political figure, and politics is really huge in this world, as well as etiquette and decorum. So they're all very proper about their use of everything. And there also is a coming of age ceremony that each child goes through, because each child is genderless until they come of age, and then they choose their gender. That is a very interesting cultural aspect of this book, but there is what I'm assuming is a neutral pronoun, because the thing is, in this book, she does not go and define the parameters of everything. You just kind of get thrown in. So I was confused at first, but I just sort of relaxed and followed it as best as I could. The thing that is most jarring for me personally, because I like to feel like I know concrete information about people in books, is that there was no indication of physical sex. And that might be a huge plus for a lot of you. It was not a negative for me, it was just jarring. But there is a neutral pronoun used in here, and they use air, E. So E picked up the bucket, I looked in air purse, she stood behind M. Those are examples of the use. And so obviously very different pronoun usage than in Becky Chambers' books, but it is a very interesting use. But yeah, in Provenance specifically, I felt like the neutral pronouns were not just a polite wait until gender is specified, although it also was used as that, but it was definitely used as somebody's pronoun in the book. Instead of referring to them as a man or a woman, person was used. I did not come across it in word form while flipping through the book in preparation for this, but there's also a term that is not defined called Nieman, and if any of you have read this book and know what I'm talking about, comment below and help me out, although I will be reading through this, and maybe I'll comment on my own video after I'm done to help myself out. In Provenance, all the rules are mostly unspoken, so you have to kind of intuit, I guess. You kind of just start to assume, oh, this is what this means, this is what this means. Whereas in Becky Chambers' books, they're a lot more defined, a lot more clearly defined, which is pretty great. That was helpful. So that's my general analysis of the books. Provenance is a little bit less interesting to me because it is very heavily political, but I did end up liking it. It grew on me. Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, I was hooked immediately. So there's that. My 2 cents, my opinion on gender in fiction is I feel that it's a bit situational on when it is most easily acceptable for it to be used. And when I say acceptable, I don't mean right or wrong. I mean that more readers will be able to accept that it's being used. It's more acceptable and believable in speculative fiction, so sci-fi and fantasy, or slightly futuristic, like Papa's 5-10 years in the future is a bit more believable because right now, with neutral pronouns not being very widespread, there are some parts of the world and of the states that it probably would be taken as a given, but where I live is not one of those places, so if I were to read it and I'm like, oh, this is modern day, it feels forced rather than natural, whereas in these books, it felt very natural even though it was foreign to me. There's also the issue where the neutral pronouns being used are going to be different in the books. One of these authors used Z, the other one used E. So that could also be a hindrance. But I think it's a really cool idea. I think it could help normalize it. Maybe this will inspire some authors to be like, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm going to write in a different take on gender in my speculative fiction book. Or perhaps it will inspire you to be on the lookout for gender in books that you are reading. But either way, I thought it was something that was really cool and I wanted to share. Go read these books. I especially highly recommend Becky Chambers' books, and I'm really excited to read them again because I love them so much. I think I covered everything. Anyway, I'm not trying to get too political. I just thought that it was a really cool concept and I really wanted to share. If you liked this video and want to see more like it, go ahead and hit subscribe. Likes would also be helpful, and comments. If you have any books that you have read where you saw gender dealt with in a similar fashion, please let me know. I would love to check them out. Also, I'm putting my Instagram and Twitter, as always, in the description below. Feel free to follow me on those, and I will see you guys next time. Bye! Ooh,